In this presentation, we will set up sales tax or usage tax within QuickBooks Online. For more accounting information and accounting courses, visit our website at accountinginstruction.info. Here we are in our Get Great Guitars file. When we think about sales tax or usage tax, it's a little bit tricky because the sales tax, usage tax, it will change based on locations. In other words, accounting in and of itself and the tracking of accounting is universal, so we don't need to have much things change in order to do that. However, sales tax is going to be very localized. Even in a whole country, it may not have the same sales tax. For example, in the United States, it will differ from state to state. So we need to know more detail from state to state, and just the fact that the sales tax will differ from smaller regional areas makes it much more complex. When considering sales tax, then it's going to be a bit more complex to set up within QuickBooks, and it's not something that QuickBooks can do as easily, and QuickBooks is putting together systems in order to help out with calculating things like sales tax and usage tax. In order to do that, however, they have to make different basically settings for each location, many locations in the US being each state having oftentimes different sales tax rules. To consider sales tax, let's first take a look at an invoice, and then we'll go through the goal of what our setup process is, and then go through the setup process. So let's open up an invoice. Typical form we would use sales tax in. In the US, typically we are going to have no sales tax oftentimes if it's a service item. So if we're having a service for our purposes, if it was like an hourly service, if it's diagnostic, then that's just our time. We're not typically having sales tax or usage tax there. If, however, we sell things, oftentimes goods, then something tangible, we typically have, that's when we have the sales tax oftentimes. So that's going to be the rule that we will follow here. It may change from place to place, country to country, but that's going to be the idea. And whatever the rules are, that's what we'll have to put in place. This then is going to be an inventory piece. What we're going to want to do then is say that this piece of inventory is subject to sales tax. So on the invoice, this is what we get from it. That's the sales price. But we also need to collect sales tax on it, so that we can then give that to the government. And that's what we need to calculate here. So we need the subtotal, and we need QuickBooks to then help us out and just be able to automatically calculate the sales tax on an invoice, so that we can just create an invoice and let the invoice then bill the customer for the correct amount, both our amount and track the sales tax that we're then going to have to give to the government. In order to do that, we need to take each of these items, these service items, and say whether or not it's subject to sales tax and what the sales tax rate is. That's what we want to tell QuickBooks so that it can calculate the sales tax. We're not going to get into a lot of detail of the different regions. That would be too in-depth. We want to go over an overview of the sales tax, go over the setting up of the sales tax. We're going to use and try to use a straight 5% sales tax, a generic sales tax, just as an example in the example problem to calculate. So to do this, we're going to close this back out, and we can say, yeah, we want to close that. And then we're going to go to taxes, so the taxes tab on the left side. If you don't have anything set up yet, then you're going to have this set up sales tax. So we'll select set up sales tax. Note that if you're only in one area, then hopefully it's not too bad, because you can set up sales tax for one particular area. However, if you're in multiple areas, then it gets more complex. You need to consult probably a professional there, because now you're going to be dealing with sales tax from different regions, and therefore that gets more complex. It may actually try to read the address that we have, of course, here. We have put in the address of the company, so it says this is the address that it's going to pick. It's saying, hey, is this the one you want to use? I'm paraphrasing here. Is this the address you want to use? Do you want us to use this region and apply the sales tax from that region? QuickBooks then being smart enough, which is nice now, not to make us enter the sales tax, look it up, and then enter it, but know the region and then know the rules related to that particular region, not being a federal sales tax in the US at least, but a regional sales tax, a state by state separating sales tax. So in our case, this looks good. So we're going to say, yeah, that looks good. We'll keep that. And it says, great, looks good to us. So we're going to say next. Key question here, do you have sales tax outside of New York? And again, our goal here is we're saying we're in New York. We're saying that's going to be our region for our store. It's a fictitious store, of course, but that's going to be our region. If we have things outside of New York, then we might be subject to sales tax outside of that. That gets more complicated. Here we're going to say no. We're going to say that everything is there. That'll simplify the process. Note that the filing requirements will also differ. So I'm going to choose monthly, and we're going to choose 010119 for our purposes so that we can practice tracking the sales tax by month and paying it. Notice that typically the when you have to track sales tax and when you have to pay it will depend on how much business that you have is. Meaning oftentimes, depending on the region, of course, the laws will change by region from region to region. But if you don't have a lot of sales, then most regulations might say we're not going to require as much reporting from you. Maybe only yearly in that case do you have to report sales tax, or quarterly every 3 months. However, if you have a lot of sales, then the region, the area might say that we want you to track sales tax, report them every month, and pay them basically every month or something like that. So the more business we have, the more the system's going to want oftentimes whatever the regulatory agency to tax you or have you record that tax and pay it sooner. So we're going to say monthly here, and we're going to say as of the beginning of the year that we're going to start our business, January 1st, 2019. We'll say next, and that's it. We got sales tax set up. You're ready to start tracking sales tax. We're going to say got it, looks good. Once you have done this, you may still go back, and let's just test this as we go, because most people will then go, okay, now I'm going to go back to my invoice and test this. We'll go to the invoice here and say, now I've set up sales tax. If I go down to my product and I was to create an invoice like a guitar, it should calculate sales tax, but it's not. We don't see any sales tax calculation down here. So that means, and that reason for that is we need to make sure that this item, the guitar now, is set up to be able to calculate the sales tax. So let's do that. We're going to close this back out, and we'll say yes. We're going to go back to the sales tab. We're going to go to the products and services. Now, we set up some of these to say that they're taxable items, but we didn't have the sales tax set up at that time. So now it is. We're going to go through these, and we'll just check off the ones that we think sales tax is applicable to, those being, in our case, the ones that are related to inventory, tangible items. So a diagnostic, no, because that's a service item. We're going to say this is a guitar inventory. So any inventory item, we're going to say that's subject to sales tax. So we're going to have this information. We're going to make sure we're going to show the more information at the bottom. And then within the more information, we want to have it is taxable. So we'll say it's taxable. And we're going to select the drop down and say it's retail. And tab, and then we're going to say, what do you sell? And we're going to just say, we're just going to call it taxable retail items. So it's going to be kind of generic the way we have it here. So it's kind of a generic setup. We're going to practice setting up the taxes. We are going to use kind of a fixed rate, not the New York rate, just to show the calculation, so we can show that calculation as we process the invoices, see what they do. So our focus here isn't just to have the problem for New York, but to have a general concept of sales tax, the calculation of it, how to set it up, and then apply that general concept to wherever we are at. So we'll save and close this. And if we go through this, we'll do this for all of the inventory items. So this is the Epi Riviera. So we'll check that off. We're going to say show more. And once again, taxable. We're going to make it retail sales, and we're going to say that it is a taxable retail item, and then save and close. And then we'll do the same for the Epi Semi Hollywood. We'll take that. We're going to say show more, and we're going to say it's taxable. We're going to say that this is going to be retail, and we're going to say that it's going to be taxable retail, and save and close. And so we had the Epiphone, the standard. Let's go the standard, and we'll show more. We're going to say it's taxable. We're going to say this is a retail, and this is going to be taxable retail. Save and close. And that's going to be then the Gibson. So we'll say the Gibson. And we'll select the drop down, taxable. We're going to say that it's retail. And we're going to say that it's taxable retail, and save and close. So that is the Gibson. Hourly service, no. Service, hour service. partial service, sales. This is inventory items, so we'll keep this one as well. So we'll go edit and we will show more. And we're going to say that this is taxable and it is retail and it will be taxable retail. Save and close. Now we're going to try our invoice once again. So we'll go back up top. We'll select the plus. We're going to go to the invoice now, back to the invoice. And we're going to scroll down and pick now a item we think is going to have inventory related to it. So we'll pick that ELP again. This is going to be a guitar. We can see that it is taxable. If we select down here and just click on the taxable item, it then is calculating for us. There's the tax, $44.38. It's being calculated for us based on the conditions we put in place, based on the location that we have, and that this inventory item is taxable. And note that it's able to do that. We don't need an address up here or anything like that because we told the system all of our stuff is within a particular state. If we have multiple states, however, then we may need more information like an address for the system to know which tax to apply. So then if we go down here, now note on our practice problem, we're not going to use the New York tax. We're just going to use 5% just as a generic tax so that it'll apply all across. And it's not subject to one particular region. It's just a general tax. So to change this, if for whatever reason you needed to, such as a practice problem, or for whatever reason it would be necessary if it wasn't correct, you can select this item. QuickBooks allows an override option. So we will be using the override option. We're just going to say a 5% tax in our problem, 25%. They want a reason for it. We're just going to say other, confirm, override, and close. So now we have that 25% tax. So we'll see what happens with this tax once we start to create the invoices. It actually makes a lot of complexity to the actual journal entry for this invoice. Even though the creation of the invoice is pretty straightforward, pretty easy, that's the point of the QuickBooks, to make the data input easy, to make the journal entry, even though not easy, simple for the system to do. However, best to know that journal entry so that we have some idea of what's going on. For more accounting information and accounting courses, visit our website at accountinginstruction.info.